are here the night after WNBA fight night. Sophie Cunningham putting JC Sheldon in a clinch. Marina Mabery targeting Caitlin Clark.
It was less of a basketball game and more of a fight night. A powder keg of 6 technicals, 3 ejections, and 2 flagrant fouls, just waiting for a match. The matchup between the Connecticut Sun and the Indiana Fever was pure, unadulterated chaos, with tempers flaring and bodies hitting the floor. But amidst the escalating madness, one single moment ignited a firestorm that engulfed the entire league. It was a blindside shove, a deafening whistle, and a baffling decision that sent the WNBA spiraling into a crisis of controversy. The league scrambled to fix it after the fact, but the damage was already done. The incident didn't just expose a bad call, it revealed a shocking and uncomfortable truth. The biggest threat to the WNBA's new golden era might just be its own referees.
All they had to do was just eject her. All they had to do was eject her and none of this happens. If the referees had ejected Marina Mabery, nothing else happens. The Sophie Cunningham situation does not happen.
The play itself was brutally simple and shockingly blatant. Caitlin Clark, the rookie phenom single-handedly drawing millions of new eyes to the league, was moving away from the ball, completely unsuspecting. In that moment, Connecticut Sun guard Marina Mabery saw an opportunity. She lowered her shoulder, planted her feet, and delivered a jarring blindside shove that sent Clark crashing to the hardwood. The collective gasp from the crowd was audible, and the broadcast crew was momentarily stunned into silence. A whistle immediately blew. It was a clear, cheap shot, an act of non-basketball aggression that almost always results in a flagrant 2 foul and an automatic ejection.
So, there are 4 players fined in that game. 4 players fined in that game, but the referees, the scariest part about all this is that the referees came out with their report. They came out with their report and said, the contact made by Mabrey did not rise to the level of ejection. Additionally, it did not meet the criteria for a flagrant 2 penalty. And it was given as a technical foul. Not even a flagrant, by the way.
But when the referees convened and announced their decision, it was utterly baffling. Just a simple technical foul. Mabrey was allowed to stay in the game, and a thick cloud of confusion settled over the arena. This wasn't a hard-fought basketball play. It was a deliberate act of aggression that crossed a clear line. Yet the officials on the court treated it like a minor run-of-the-mill infraction. That single inexplicable decision would become the anchor for all the chaos that was about to unfold, leaving fans and analysts asking a simple question: what in the HL are the refs watching?
A lot of it is centered around the last 46 seconds where Sophie Cunningham hard fouls JC Sheldon. She gets ejected, JC gets ejected, does Lindsay? I think Lindsay gets ejected. And in watching the broadcast, even the broadcasters at the time mentioned if they would have just ejected Marina Mabery, this probably wouldn't have happened.
The feeling that something was deeply and fundamentally wrong with the officiating didn't linger as a question for long. It crystallized into undeniable fact just a short while later. In a completely separate incident, Phoenix Mercury player Sophie Cunningham was whistled for a hard foul on JCS Sheldon. As Sheldon drove to the basket, Cunningham got tangled up with her, wrapping her up in a clinch to prevent an easy score. It was physical certainly, but it was a recognizable basketball play, a defender trying to stop a basket. The referees, however, saw it as something far more sinister. They reviewed the play, and to the astonishment of many, immediately hit Cunningham with a flagrant 2 foul, ejecting her from the game on the spot. The contrast was staggering and infuriating.
So Caitlin Clark gets poked in the eye. Marina Mabery doesn't even see what happens, and she just decides to clean Caitlin Clark out of it. And the referees just said, nah, it was not worth an injection.
Cunningham was tossed for a defensive play in the heat of the moment, while Mabrey remained on the court after delivering a calculated off-ball shove to an opponent who never saw it coming. The double standard was so glaring it felt intentional. Social media exploded. Fans furiously posted side-by-side clips, demanding an explanation for how one foul warranted an instant ejection, while the other, far more dangerous play, was met with a simple slap on the wrist. The inconsistency destroyed any semblance of fair play. It wasn't about applying a clear set of rules anymore. It felt like the refs were making it up as they went, and their bizarre, arbitrary judgment was turning a competitive game into an absolute farce.
And then she was getting attacked. Like, she was just standing there. She was standing there. What is she supposed to do? She's protecting herself. She didn't throw hands or anything. She just held her. She didn't punch. She didn't slap, eye gouge. She didn't do any of that. She just held her. All right, so I don't know, man. That's my opinion on it.
After the final buzzer sounded and the online outrage had reached a deafening roar, the WNBA's head office was forced to intervene. In a rare and telling move, the league issued a formal announcement. They were retroactively upgrading Marina Mabery's in-game technical foul to a Flagrant 2 penalty. This was a massive public admission of failure. A Flagrant 2 foul, by rule, comes with an automatic ejection. The league was officially and publicly stating that its on-court officials had made a game-altering mistake.
So basically, all they had to do was just eject her. All they had to do was eject her and none of this happens. If the referees had ejected Marina Mabery, nothing else happens.
Mabrey should have been thrown out the moment she committed the foul. While the decision was intended to quell the storm and deliver a sense of delayed justice, it had the opposite effect for many. It only confirmed what every fan watching the game already knew. The referees had completely blown the call in a critical moment. The post-game correction felt less like a commitment to fairness and more like panic damage control in the face of overwhelming public pressure. The league had tried to put out the fire, but it did so by pouring gasoline on the burning credibility of its own officials, creating a new problem that ran much deeper than a single missed call.
So yeah, she ended up stating this: Marina Mabery's technical from last night's Fever Sun game has been upgraded to a Flagrant 2. Oh man, the league told ESPN a Flagrant 2 comes from a standard fine. Additionally, Sophie Cunningham was fined separately for her hard foul with 46 seconds to play. No players will be suspended. So that's the end result of everything. I think she came down here and said something as well. And to this point, neither coach has been fined for their post-game criticism over the official.
The league's ruling didn't just correct a call, it sparked a bizarre civil war, pitting the WNBA's front office against its own officiating crew. The proof was in the official pool report, which was released to the media shortly after the game. In it, lead referee Ashley Gloss gave her direct explanation for the on-court decision. She stated in no uncertain terms that the contact from Mabrey did not rise to the level of an ejection and did not meet the criteria for a Flagrant 2 penalty. According to her and her crew, they had reviewed the play and deemed it not serious enough for removal.
Now, people are calling for Sophie Cunningham's ejection from the league. People are commenting on her Marina Mabery stuff.
Just hours later, the league office released its own statement, effectively shredding that judgment and calling it flat out wrong. The public contradiction was stunning. How could the trained officials on the court and the rule makers in the league office watch the exact same blatant shove and arrive at two completely opposite conclusions? It painted a damning picture of a system in total disarray. Were the rules fundamentally unclear, or were the referees simply incompetent at interpreting them? This public disagreement exposed a crisis of confidence at the very heart of the league. No one seemed to be on the same page, and it left everyone wondering who, if anyone, was actually in charge of the rulebook.
It is kind of, frustrating to see the hypocrisy everywhere in all the spaces when it comes to the Indiana Fever, because I'm seeing the same people saying, and the same people in the media, the same people in social media, which social media doesn't really count and it shouldn't, but these are filtering to people in the mainstream media saying it was a physical league last season to Sophie should be ejected and her spot should be considered in the league, and calling her out on all these physical plays that were totally excusable until the Indiana Fever do them.
While the league and its referees were entangled in a public dispute over rules and regulations, the player at the center of it all, Marina Mabery, was not only unfazed, she was actively cashing in. Mabrey has meticulously built her entire career on a foundation of aggressive, in-your-face physicality. Known for stirring up trouble on the court, she's the kind of player fans in opposing arenas love to boo, a reputation she wears like a badge of honor. So when the controversy around her shove exploded, she didn't apologize, she didn't lay low, and she certainly didn't show a hint of regret. Instead, she leaned directly into the storm. In a TikTok video responding to the flood of angry and hateful comments, she posted a simple, defiant, and telling message: "Every time they comment, I make dollars." With that one sentence, she flipped the entire narrative.
There's no way y'all coming after the game and then now you're saying, oh, it should have been a Flagrant 2. Oh, we should have. Look, you're catching the smoke and now you want to change it. You need to do it during the game. All right, during the game, go ahead and call it the way it is, man. Stop with the nonsense.
She was turning the outrage into fuel, embracing the role of the villain, and making it perfectly clear that she thrives on the chaos. For her, this wasn't about sportsmanship. It was about building her brand in the modern age, where notoriety equals engagement, and engagement equals money. Her unapologetic stance only further polarized the debate and raised an even bigger, more troubling question for the league. What are you supposed to do when a player can ignite a firestorm, face a minor post-game penalty, and walk away not only unscathed but celebrating the controversy?
She didn't even get the 2 free throws in possession. She didn't even get a flagrant. I've never seen a technical upgraded to a flagrant 2 before. I've never seen that happening before. Like, it wasn't even called a flagrant 1. It was a tech upgraded to a flagrant 2.
This entire fiasco is magnified tenfold by one unavoidable game-changing reality: the Caitlin Clark effect. The WNBA is currently experiencing a meteoric surge in popularity unlike anything in its 28-year history, and it's almost entirely because of its new #1 star. Games are selling out, national television viewership is shattering records, and the league is finally getting the mainstream attention it has fought for decades to earn. But with that bright, unforgiving spotlight comes immense pressure. Every hard foul against Clark is now dissected frame by frame by millions of people, many of whom are new to the league.
The contact made by Mabrey did not rise to the level of an ejection. Additionally, it did not meet the criteria for a flagrant foul penalty 2.
The narrative that she is being welcomed to the league with excessive physicality or even being intentionally targeted is growing louder with each game. The Mabrey shove wasn't just another missed call, it was a missed call against the league's most valuable asset, broadcast live to a massive new audience.
So this just clearly shows me the referees need some schooling, man. Okay? They need some schooling. You had these referees out here clueless, man. And I was wondering what was taking them so long to call the right call. I swear to you, man, we lived 2 lifetimes before they came back and said what they needed to say about the nonsense that happened.
The officials aren't just calling a basketball game anymore. They are the on-court stewards of a rapidly growing multi-million-dollar brand. Their failure to protect a player in such a vulnerable position, especially one so central to the league's future, sends a terrible message. It suggests that the WNBA's officiating isn't ready for primetime and that it can't or won't protect its own stars when it matters most.
Question was, why did Caitlin Clark get a technical foul? She ended up coming back and saying, after the foul by Sheldon, Clark reacted in an unsportsmanlike manner towards Sheldon. Huh?
Disturbingly, this wasn't an isolated incident, it was history repeating itself. Just last season, a nearly identical controversy erupted when Chicago Sky player Kennedy Carter delivered a vicious off-ball hip check to Clark. In that moment, the referees completely missed it. No foul was called on the floor. It was only after a tidal wave of social media outrage that the WNBA stepped in a day late to upgrade the play to a flagrant 1 foul. The parallels are chilling. A blatant non-basketball cheap shot on Clark.
Now the flagrant with Sophie, I'm still questioning that. I'm still questioning because it looked like a take foul, fam. And don't tell me y'all never seen somebody grab LeBron James, like hold him like both of his arms, try to hold him down. He fights through it, still makes the bucket. Don't tell me y'all never seen that.
A complete failure by the on-court officials to recognize and penalize it in real time. A massive public outcry from fans who saw the foul for exactly what it was. And a belated reactive correction from the league office trying to clean up the mess. This is no longer about a single bad call or a single bad crew. It's a pattern. It reveals a systemic breakdown where the league is constantly playing catch-up to its own controversies, unable to get it right in the moment. This recurring cycle erodes all trust and makes the league look perpetually disorganized and one step behind its own game.
At the end of the day, as long as bad referees are allowed to do whatever the hell they want to do, as long as bad referees can get away with every single thing they want and can get away with stuff like this, nothing will ever change. Nothing will ever change.
All this chaos, the bad calls, the player rivalries, the media frenzies, is being excused by some as mere growing pains for a league in transition. But there is a deepening fear that these aren't pains, they're symptoms of a systemic breakdown. The WNBA is caught in a culture clash. It's trying to merge its old school gritty identity with the polished, high scrutiny world of mainstream sports entertainment. This has created a bizarre hypocrisy where plays that were considered tough defense just one season ago are now sparking national debates.
Although it's good that the refs did something about it, but they should have did something about it way earlier. They could have prevented all of this. They could have prevented every bit of this, but they chose not to.
The league desperately wants the money, attention, and relevance that a superstar like Clark brings, but it seems utterly unprepared to manage the environment that comes with it. The central question is no longer about one foul, but about the league's very foundation. Can the WNBA professionalize its officiating and enforce its own rules fast enough to keep up with its explosive growth? Or will these internal conflicts, double standards, and reactive punishments ultimately sabotage its own golden opportunity, alienating the very fans it's trying so hard to attract?
This is what she said. Every time they comment, I make dollars.
Marina Mabery to a flagrant 2, which honestly, she should have just been ejected from the game. This is what happened last season with Kennedy Carter when her cheap shot on Caitlyn wasn't addressed in the moment. I think they're trying to address that now. So the flagrant 2 has been issued. Sophie Cunningham has been issued another fine on top of her flagrant 2. But is it too little too late?
In the end, the fallout was a chaotic mess of fines, conflicting statements, and lingering questions that still have no answers. The Mabrey shove may have been the flashpoint, but the incident exposed a system where the rules feel arbitrary and fairness seems to be an afterthought. When the league and its own officials can't even agree on what constitutes a dangerous play, it's clear something is fundamentally broken. This is no longer about one game or one bad call. It's about the future of a league standing on the cusp of greatness.
Like, if you guys don't know about Sophie Cunningham and Marina Mabery, who these two people are, like, you need to just know the lore. Like, Marina Mabery, this is how great, like, Dejanay calls Marina Mabery her evil twin.
The WNBA has a golden opportunity with its newfound popularity, but that opportunity is incredibly fragile. If fans, new and old, believe the games are poorly officiated and the outcomes are influenced by incompetent calls, they will simply tune out. The real question that remains is a troubling one. Will the WNBA learn from this debacle and enforce its rules consistently in the moment, or will it continue to chase its own tail, trying to clean up messes that never should have happened in the first place?